A big baby.
The CIA Projects and Operations Iceberg is what I named this. It's an iceberg I made. Well, let's get to the tier 1, the well-known, the surface level. The first really well-known one, and I think this is the one people know best, is MKULTRA. So also disclosed in the Church Committee, the MKULTRA is a notorious mind control experiment involving LSD and other drugs to control behavior. Also sensory deprivation, electroshock, and some sexual abuse things came out. But basically, the CIA wanted to control behavior for different reasons, and they performed a ton of experiments to try and mind control people. Investigative efforts, when to be disclosed, were hampered by CIA Director Helms' order. They destroyed all the MKUltra files. So basically, the Church Committee and the Rockefeller Commissions relied on only sworn testimony of direct participants and a small number of documents. So we really honestly don't know that much about it, and yet this is still the one people talk about the most, maybe the most egregious right off the bat. Horrifying. But yeah, so the CIA was using drugs to try and control behavior for various different reasons. One of the ones you hear a lot is they're trying to create assassins who could do something and forget their memory, some kind of like Winter Soldier shit stuff. Ted Kaczynski was also allegedly part of the MKUltra. He was in part of some kind of Harvard LSD experiment that was along the same lines. I don't remember if it was specifically a part of MKUltra, but I thought that was interesting. And he said it didn't really have an effect on him, but I don't know, interesting. Number 2, Operation Ajax. This covert CIA operation was in partnership with the British intelligence service, and it was basically to overthrow the democratically elected Prime Minister of Iran, Mohammed, I'm going to say his name wrong, Mossadegh, and it was in the 1950s. Basically, the Prime Minister had nationalized Iran's oil industry, which threatened the Western interests, and so this operation orchestrated protests, bribed officials, used propaganda to get rid of the Prime Minister and his government and install a pro-Western government. And this has had long-term effects in the region. This is why the region's so radicalized. It used to not be radical that much. It used to actually be pretty progressive in all terms, especially for the day. So this one is egregious. We're still dealing with the consequences today. Number 3, Operation Chaos, a domestic spying operation targeting anti-Vietnam war activists and other political dissenters. So multiple presidencies expanded under Nixon. They spied on foreign people, domestic people, anti-war groups, counterculture groups. They would go as far as purchasing garbage truck companies, garbage collection companies, and they would go through documents by these organizations, like Limitless, not the movie, the TV show, going through the trash, trying to figure out what people were doing. And it's pretty funny that they went this far, but this was just one of many spying operations done by them on even citizens. Operation Mockingbird, number 4. Basically, we don't have a ton on this other than it happened, so too much specifics are hard, but Operation Mockingbird alleged media infiltration where journalists used to spread CIA-friendly propaganda. Some reports suggest they would pay individuals in the media upwards of $500,000, which at the time was a lot, but not much has been confirmed, like I said. And it wasn't that they so much paid off like a whole news agency, though that was bound to happen. More looking into it, it seems like they paid off individual journalists. So, and that person was usually high up within some kind of news agency, and they would report. And Mockingbird never stopped, technically. Like, there's not much about it. So I'm sure it's still going on. Now, this is the tier 2. The somewhat known but less talked about projects. And right off the bat, Project MKNAOMI. Now, I have a video not really on a part of this project, not really on the whole project, and that's my CIA heart attack gun video. Check that out. Basically, it's a sub-project of MKUltra where they were developing chemical weapons to do various different things. The most famous one is the heart attack gun. They used some shellfish toxins that could basically stop a heart. It would mimic a heart attack. And when they shot at you, the pellet came out of the modified gun, melted on your skin, poisoned you, and wouldn't leave any marks. Or if it did, it was so small that it would be basically untraceable. There's a few more. They developed some various other types of weapons. But in the process of this, they linked up with some hospitals. So like the New York Psych Institute, I think it was, where they murdered pro tennis player Mike Blower, I can't remember, check out the video. And that was sad. They used kind of a mescaline drug, didn't tell him what it was. He went in there for depression because he got divorced. They tested on him and he ended up dying, and it came out years later. There's a New York Times article about it. Very sad, but that was MKNAOMI, weapon development. Now this one, number 2 on the tier 2 list. This one is becoming more and more well known. I mean, Rogan obviously has talked about some of these, St. Rogies. Red Thread did an episode on this one recently, but Operation Paperclip. The secret program brought over, the summary of Operation Paperclip is World War II ends. Germany has the best engineers, scientists. I'm using Germany instead of the other word because I think YouTube probably doesn't like that word. And basically, Russia and us were like, yeah, we want these guys. So we took them. Instead of charging them with war crimes, arresting them, doing probably the moral thing, we put them to work and in our schools and things like that. So the secret program brought over at least 1,600 German scientists, engineers, and technicians, many of them who had worked for the Big N regime. And the goal was to gain a technological edge during the Cold War. Now remember, Russia did this too, so they had some we had some. Particularly in the rocketry and advanced sciences, and it's getting more discussed today, and it's morally ambiguous, however you say it. Basically, a lot of courts and things have said if these guys were still alive today, we would try them for war crimes. NASA guys, big NASA guys, big university leaders, have allowed them to infiltrate American thought. Now, maybe they reformed instantly overnight, or maybe we have some Nazi influence that has entered our academic fields. I personally probably think so. But yeah. Number 3 on the tier 2 list, Operation Mongoose, which was a series of covert operations aimed at overthrowing my boy Fidel Castro. After the Bay of Pigs invasion, the U.S. decided to work with the mafia and anti-Castro Cubans, both foreign and domestic, to perform covert actions, some of which were to attack people and spark terror and create kind of a terror in the environment by doing operations that would make Fidel less popular. But the most important one was they were trying to kill Fidel. Assassinate him. They tried some overthrowing, but they tried to assassinate him too. One point they created a pen with a needle that would poison whatever official was using it. They offered bounties to like hitmen and mafia people. So 4 of 4 on the tier 2 list. Now this one is the one I find funniest. And my boy Rogan loves these. St. Rogies loves this one. Operation Midnight Climax. It's a sub-project of MKULTRA where prostitutes were used to lure people in. And they would test them. So basically, I think San Francisco was the big one. And there's some talk in that book, Chaos by Tom O'Neill, that maybe Charlie Manson was a part of this. But basically, they would get prostitutes, chicks, hippie chicks, to lure these dudes into brothels or these warehouses, safe houses they set up. And once they got in there, the agents would do all sorts of tests with drugs, psychedelics, all sorts of these on these Johns to figure out what happened. And yeah, it's funny. There again, not a ton known other than this happened and this was the setup, and they spent a lot of money on it. And they tried like aerosol LSD, injectable LSD, tabs, all of it. And more than LSD too, but that was the biggest one at the time. All right, welcome to Tier 3. These are the obscure but documented. And some of these I think are more probably known than I'm giving them credit for. But these are the ones that I think are stranger They some of them borderline, especially this first one, on the supernatural. So we'll dive right into it. The first one is Project Stargate. Now, this one is fascinating. If you watch the Sean Ryan show with Remote Viewer 1, it's very interesting. Recently, the Kenworth Kid, our boy Billy from War Mode, but also featured on MSSP, for all you dogs out there, you know what I'm talking about. He went to the Monroe Institute, and he said it was BS.
CIA ran operation pretty much. But
no chance CIA even comes near that.
They do. They spent tons of money on it.
The group that you were with, CIA.
The Monroe Institute, like Robert Monroe Remote Viewing, yes.
Talking about Starlink?
Okay, the place you went.
Stargate. My bad.
The place you went. You think the CIA is keeping tabs on that?
I don't fucking know. I just know they did. Shit I will say was they're like, oh, you're never gonna be fed better than you are this week.
I heard the grub sucked, yeah.
Grub was ass.
What kind of grub you talking? What kind of grub you talking?
Shit. The eggs every day were just like Insta eggs and fucking just bullshit.
Seed
honestly.
oils?
Oh yeah, definitely. They're like, oh, we got cheesesteaks tonight, and it was literally just like if you got a roast beef from Wawa, the like deli slicer, and fried it.
They're giving all the fucking dreamers that are talking to aliens cheesesteaks.
Yeah, cheesesteak, dude. 3 square.
Dude, they fed you guys cheesesteaks and then went to take naps.
Dude, frying lunch
I
meat.
was just farting in my check here.
Bro.
But basically, Project Stargate is a remote viewing program. Now, remote viewing is the idea you can gather intelligence from a distance in your mind. It's like psychics, being a psychic. Now, the government employed psychics. This is a fact. And that's not too uncommon, but in this, they tried a remote viewing program. They felt they needed it. And so they trained people to do out-of-body remote viewing work. This is true. This is declassified. I mean, this is in documents. They did it. Now, the reports of it working vary. If you ask some of the people a part of it, they say it worked. If you look at the documents, they say it didn't really work. Remote viewing, to be specific, is the practice of seeking impressions about a distant or unseen subject, reportedly sensing it with the mind. A remote viewer is expected to give information about an object, event, person, or location hidden from physical view, separated at some distance. And it ended due, supposedly, to not providing enough information to be worth it. There's evidence to suggest the CIA spent way more time and effort on it and the psychics and paranormal stuff than they want to admit. I'm not saying they did. This is what I've read. And the Army was a big part of this too. So the Army and CIA, they do a lot of things together, or they used to. This is part of it for sure. Very interesting. I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. I don't know. There's some interesting things, like not what the CIA did, but there's been remote viewers who have gone on, like Remote Viewer 1, to work and do missing people and do some of these things, and they seem to get some results, and then on other times it just seems like complete BS. I think it's interesting. I don't know how much I believe it. I would love to look more into remote viewing, less interested in Project Stargate as a whole, just because I think even if something cool happened, I think they would try their best not to declassify some of that. All right, number 2 of tier 3 is Project QK Hilltop. It was a study conducted in China focused on, you guessed it, behavior modification through hypnosis and other means. Not a ton of information, but it's something similar to MKULTRA. But I think this one was focused a little more on hypnosis and some of that maybe psychological stuff, and a little less on the drugs, even though I'm sure drugs were part of the hypnosis. The CIA, as you could tell, cared a lot about behavior modification. Number 3 on tier 3, Project or Operation. I think it was Project Acoustic Kitty. Not Autistic Kitty, but Acoustic Kitty, which was an attempt to surgically alter cats to spy on Soviet embassies. Basically, they would implant microphones, radio transmitters, and antennas inside of a cat. And they wanted it to go into embassies and go near people to spy and get information. Very funny. It ended because the cats were too untrainable. Basically, they kept running away and not going near the targets. They report they never killed any cats. Some people in it said the cats kept running in the road and dying. So yeah, that was a short-lived but very funny one. 4 on 4. Now, this one's talked about a lot, actually. I think I just put it lower because it's sad, it's depressing, it's one you don't want to believe. I know St. Rogies, I've been saying his name a lot, has talked about this one. Operation Northwoods.
An OJ truther. Are you a Gulf of Tonkin guy or Operation Northwoods?
Those are all true.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Those are all true.
Operation North.
It was a false flag operation. Didn't happen. It was just planned. But basically the U.S. was going to commit terrorist acts on itself to justify military action against Cuba. Some of the ones they wanted to do involved using firearms in schools, movie theaters, airport bombings, and having Cuban Americans or allied Cubans come and do that to create public interest in going to war with Cuba. President Kennedy shut it down, and that was supposedly the end of it. And we saw what happened to him. All right, last one on Tier 3, Project Palladium. It was a secret effort to test Soviet radar systems by projecting fake UFOs, adding to the speculation of UFO sightings, essentially making their radars ping falsely. There's not a ton of information on that, but that is the idea, that basically we would project fake UFOs, and not necessarily aliens, but just unidentified flying objects, to ping Soviet radars to trick them, and a way to test what their systems were. So Tier 4. Now these are the real conspiratorial, the more unproven, but the believed by some, and some of these are more just fictional, fun stuff. And some of them, there's more to it, but then over the years, people have added things. So the first one is the Montauk Project. And I think this comes from more of a fictional book. Montauk, near Long Island or whatever, they did some experiments. Did any of them happen? What were the experiments? Pretty unknown. The fun thing about this one is this is often linked as the inspiration for the show Stranger Things. So if you like Stranger Things, this is kind of supposedly some of the inspiration. Another fun thing is our boy Tim Dillon, on Matt and Shane's Secret Podcast, talked about like when a bloated dead dog floated up. Everyone called it the Montauk Monster. Excuse me for that burp, dude. Gross.
Like we had something in Long Island, and they called it the Montauk Monster. It was a weird looking thing that washed up on the shore, and people like, it's from the Plum Island Disease Research Facility, like it's something they were experimenting on. And like multiple people just came out and go, no, that's a dog. And it's just a bloated body of a dog. And no one cared. They're like, it came from Plum Island. It's a secret government experiment. And then the guy's like, no. When a dog dies, its body bloats.
Lose its hair
it
and
loses
bloat.
its
It's
hair.
going to look fucked up.
And that's exactly.
Number 2 on Tier 4, MK Often / MK Search. So with the MK, some kind of subset of MKULTRA. Now this is the one where it was really like, there's stuff about it. Some guy added more to it online, and that stuck around. So it's a reported investigation into paranormal stuff, including demonology and witchcraft. A guy wrote a book in 2007 and claims that's what they did, and that's kind of where that goes through. Going through documents I could find on CIA website, through the internet, whatever, I couldn't find anything really about that wasn't linked to that 2007 guy. What I could find, which was very, very little, which it was probably more like MKULTRA, testing drugs to see if we could control behavior. Now, last one on Tier 4. Now this goes into a little bit more. I'm going to say 1, but it kind of goes more. That's the Phoenix program, a Vietnam War era program that involved questionable tactics, including assassinations, attempt at counterinsurgency, basically CIA capturing and torturing those they don't like. Now, Vietnam War, but they weren't necessarily operating in Vietnam. The CIA, and this is where I'm going a little bit beyond the project, did a lot of technically illegal operations in Laos and I think Cambodia and all these countries around Vietnam, where we technically weren't at war and technically not doing anything, but the CIA was sending people in and they were recruiting people from the army to kill a lot of people and torture them. And that's why this one's at the bottom. It's very dark. And I know we still have that. We saw some of that with things like Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib or whatever. But when you read some of these stories, there's something that feels a little particularly dark. But that's where I'm going to end. I didn't include any too much Epstein-like things because there's not a lot of definitive ties. Again, this was meant to be kind of a free-flowing, not fun, but less intensive just video. If you want something more in-depth on one or all of these, I would love to do like a 10-hour video where I just break each one down, go through documents, go through everything, explain it all to you. But this has been Bendy. Have a good night.